Good evening, everybody. This is Robin with another edition of Horror Pop After Midnight. And my guest tonight she's an actress, a writer, a producer, and a singer, Krsy Fox. How's it going, Krsy?
Hey, good. How are you?
Thank you for coming on.
Thanks for having me. It's exciting.
It's very exciting. Let's talk about your horror short film, Hymns. I really liked it. It kind of reminded me of my childhood nightmare. So when you came up with this film, was it based off any of your childhood nightmares?
Yeah, I think that was kind of the idea. I mean, it originally started because my daughter started getting really upset when her dad would go away. We both obviously are in bands, and he would leave on tour, and she's 3, so she's finally getting to that age where she understands if someone's gone and something isn't right in her home, right? So I was thinking about that, and I was thinking about what makes a little kid feel safe. And then I just took it a step further and built it more around a divorce where it's a bit more permanent for the mom and the daughter. And then what sort of vulnerabilities you open up because of, your fear and your discomfort for being alone for the first time, mother and daughter. And I just thought it was interesting that this little girl basically manifested this creature to live in her top bunk, and that was a really fun idea. And when I told my daughter about it, she's like, oh, that's really scary. And, so she got into it. And so we had a great time. I really wanted to shoot something with her. And she's such a character that I thought she did awesome.
So how much fun did she have doing a horror film with her mother and all that? Was she really scared at some of the scenes of the shoots or you should...
No, not at all. My daughter is like a horror fanatic. She for herself, when she was about 2.5, she decided when she turned 3, she was going to have a Freddy versus Jason birthday party, and she did for her 3rd birthday. And we had Michael Myers show up at the bouncy house, and so I can only invite 3 other kids because they would all be scared. And my daughter was starstruck, like it was Disneyland. So that's my kid anyway. So no, she was into it, and you know what? She grew up on sets watching us make films and being around special effects and blood and monsters. So she understands what's real and what's not real, and even things down to okay, this is the moment when you have to act really scared, and she understood how to do that, and she memorized all of her lines, all of her dialogue. She would go back and forth. We didn't have to feed her lines, which was insane to me. I didn't realize that she could do that until we actually started working on this. And I was like, wow, you understand this.
Let's talk about the creature. You really don't see the creature. You only see his hand. But I like that because I like the psychological value of it. It makes you think in your head what this creature could really look like that's lurking over the bunk bed. It kind of reminded me when I was a little kid having, these little nightmares. I'd be afraid of the dark people. I always saw dark people.
Okay, and in the shadows and stuff?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was an interesting idea because the idea of Hymns is that he can look like anything or anyone he wants. So for my character, he kind of formed into my ex-husband because he was the person that I was having the most struggles internally with. So when I saw him, he often came in the form of him. And then, of course, for my daughter, it was more of a creature-esque thing as it would be when you're a little kid and you're not really sure what you should be afraid of. So I thought that's interesting and also a scary idea that you don't know what you should be afraid of.
Yeah, that was creepy how you had the guy who portrayed your husband in there at the end of the bed. And I love how you used the cinematography for the dark shadows and made it real dark and creepy. That gave me the chills.
Thank you. Yeah, that was creepy. That was creepy pretending to sleep with Mark watching me. That was definitely...
And I also loved the kill scene, what happened to you. That was epic. I mean...
Thank you.
That just blew my mind. I was like, I didn't see that coming.
Yeah, I always like films that sort of take a twist, not just at the end, but maybe in the middle. And I thought that was an interesting take where you expect my character to... continue on, and it's real. But I thought the vulnerability of the little girl being left in the home alone, which is the thing she was afraid of in the first place, was scarier, but also more representative of the feeling of the film. and more of a child's fear. I tried to really shoot things lower, like more her level, and so I tried to keep that in my head when I was working on this, and just sort of like what are some of the rules of the camera? Maybe we lean it a little more her level, and so that was kind of fun.
Oh, I loved it. Now,
Thank you.
yeah, now you worked on 2 films of Spider-1, your better half. You guys have that great chemistry. The first film you guys did was Allegora, and then the second one you guys did together was Bury the Bride, and you also worked with Scout Taylor Compton on both films. So how did you manage to get Scout on both films?
We're good friends with Scout, and we became really close because we have mutual friends, and it was funny. I had done a couple films that I directed, features, before we did Allegoria and Bury the Bride, and then we started working on Allegoria, and I think Spider had a conversation with her one day, and she's like, why don't you ever ask me to be? And we're like, oh, well, great. Yeah, there's actually a great role for you in Allegoria. And then when Bury the Bride, when we came up with the idea, I knew I wanted Scout to play my sister. My Scout actually looked like my sister, and my real little sister. So it was kind of, when we were writing the script, it was just coming down to whether or not I was going to play Sadie or whether or not I was going to play June, and whichever one. And it just, Scout to both of us, she made the more sense as June, and I made more sense as Sadie. So that's how that kind of worked out, and I love working with her, and I just love her as a human. So it's great.
Yeah, you guys did a pretty good job. You guys really made it look like you guys were legit siblings, and I can also see the resemblance between you guys in the film, how you guys played it off with each other. I mean, that was good.
Thank you. It was really fun. It was the only thing that was a stretch for us is I could never imagine arguing with Scout, and I feel like we spent 90% of the movie arguing with each other, and it was our very first scene out of the gate. We were in an argument and in each other's face, and it really, it was it almost helped because it made me very uncomfortable to yell at her or to be upset with her. So it made me more emotional when we were arguing. And so I think it elevated everything, which was great.
Yes. And the starting the Bury the Bride, I loved it. I loved how you shot it. Kind of remind me of a modern day Hitchcock type of style shoot with the green tint. And you see Sadie just going crazy. You don't know what she's like stabbing or hitting. You see blood, and I love the green tint, and I like it. It kind of reminds me of a Hitchcock style of a shot.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I mean, it was. We went back and forth in the edit of how the film was going to start, and it just felt really good to shock people right out of the gate. And then let them settle in and think that it's, going to be calm for a moment. And then once this film really starts going, it kind of doesn't stop till that ending. Like it's a pretty relentless film. It even felt like it when we were shooting. It was always very intense, and a lot of things happen, a lot of deaths, so that it was crazy. Every night we shot all nights, and every night every morning, I guess, when we finished shooting, we'd drive home and we'd be like, wow, I feel like someone beat the crap out of me. So.
Oh, you guys did. I love how you made the role of Sadie not vulnerable, but she was just a badass.
Thank you. Well, I thought a lot about this character and how, she's an alpha female, and she's very, she's always in control of the scenario, and she's always the boss. But in this scenario, she had no control. So I'm like, well, what would a person like her naturally do if they were put in the scenario, and all the things that made her comfortable, she couldn't rely on? And I was like, she probably would become an animal. She would probably just completely unravel and snap, and all the things she had been holding in to, seem like she was so perfect would just come out, and she would just, she ended up just losing her mind, which was so much fun to play.
I bet it was. If Sadie was a for real person, if I was around her, I wouldn't want to get her pissed off. I don't want her to hack me in half.
It's so funny you said that. I had a friend of mine, Paul Wiley, who he did the Terrifier 1 and 2. He did the music for it, and I wanted Spider and I talked about it. We wanted to get a different perspective on a couple scenes musically, so we had him write music for 2 scenes, and one of the scenes was the big ending with Sadie stabbing.
Oh, yeah.
So and so did. And so when I sent it to him and I was like, hey, do you want to see if you come up with something cool musically for this section? He's like, wow, I'm never going to piss you off. He was like, that's insane. I was like, oh, good. I'm glad if he thinks so and he did Terrifier, then I'm like, we probably are doing okay.
Yeah. Speaking of the music and scores in the film, I'm a sucker for that. I love how you use the different songs and scores in each scene. I love how you made it as a character as part of the film, which made, the audience follow it. And I loved like the tick-tock and the heart beating mixed into it. That kind of gave it an eerie taste for the atmosphere of the film.
Cool, thank you. Yeah, I feel like for me, because I edited this film, so as I edit, I like to put music into certain scenes, because once you get a couple scenes really tight and musically the tone feels right, I feel like the rest of the film unfolds itself easier, and you know where to go with the edit, but you also know where the music needs to go. And this film was the opposite of Allegoria, which was music was much more minimal. And then this film, it was like we had it done, and then we're like, I think this maybe needs even more music, which is, so we just kept building on it, and it was really fun. I spent a lot of hours working on the music by myself, a lot of hours working with my friend Michelle, who's a great composer, and then I even went to a friend of mine, Tyler's. He's in a rock band, and I was like, hey, I want to do this sort of metal opera moment in that shed scene. I was like, and he's such a great guitar player, and I was like, let's come up with something really cool for this section. So I got to work with a lot of my favorite people, and be collaborative, but also get spend a lot of time just by myself getting in a mood with it. So that was really fun.
Yeah, speaking how you like to do when you shoot films where you like get it like in the it starts getting good in the middle of the film. I like how you did that in Bury the Bride. Towards the middle of the film, you did like a sharp curveball, and I was like, damn.
Did it surprise you?
Yes, it did. I didn't see it was going to go there, because the main character, David, which was June's soon-to-be, husband, when she was talking about him being a redneck, hunting, New World Order, and crooked teeth, you knew those were some major red flags, and you're like, holy fuck, something's going to get crazy because of that.
Yeah, I think what we really wanted people to think is that moment when Carmen is dancing.
Yeah.
That, you're thinking like, yeah, spit on my grave or something where it could be, a very violent act towards a woman. And it was, but it wasn't what people thought it was going to be. And that was what we sort of wanted. We wanted it to be, and honestly, it was funny when we came up with this idea, we're like, maybe people will figure out the twist, and it doesn't matter. That's okay. And we went back and forth a lot with the promos and stuff. Like, do we give it away? Do we not? And I'm really glad we didn't, because it seems like unanimously across the board, everybody was shocked. So I think like we were both like, okay, great. And it was fun when we were at Panic Fest. That was the first time we sat in a theater and watched the film with other people, and the gasp in that moment in the room and just the response from people, that was really cool, because we're like, okay, this works. Now we know,
Oh,
we don't really know so close to it. So
yeah, it blew my mind. I loved it. I like it when directors and writers do that. It just gets you more on the edge of your seat, which it did. I mean, that just, like I said, this blew my mind. I was like, damn. Right after, like you said, right after Carmen's a little erotic, striptease dance, you can tell she was having fun on the set doing that dance.
She's such a character. Lindsay, the actress who played Carmen, her background is comedy, but she's just absolutely stunning. She's not what people think of a classic comedian, and so it's so great because we can push her into a lot of different avenues in our films, and she always is up for the challenge, and she just was amazing. She had a lot of depth to that character, and I think people just really liked her because she was also the levity in the film, and what happens is pretty damn sad because of it.
Oh, it sure was. And I also liked the ending, how, Sadie just got her sweet revenge and went in that final girl moment, and just started whipping all those hillbillies like it was out of style.
Oh yeah, that was fun. That was satisfying. And believe me, I think when we shot that, it was like 4 a.m, and I was freezing. We were all freezing, covered in blood, hoping not to get bit by anything. And so we're just like, all of that energy was real, and it was very intense. I think I may have stabbed Dylan a few times in the neck for real. So.
Oh, you know you love being covered with all that blood, though. Come on.
I do. I really do. I always tell Spider, I'm like, I feel way prettier when I'm covered in blood, and I don't know why. Like, you can get me all dressed up in a dress for a movie, and I'm like, ugh. But then when I'm covered in blood and I'm gross and, like, slimy, I'm like, this is awesome. I feel great. I feel way more comfortable.
Yeah, and I also like how you and Spider wrote the ending, how Sadie did get her satisfying, happy ending. I'm not going to spoil it for anybody how it ends. I was pretty satisfied with that ending.
I'm glad. You know, it was funny. Spider and I talk about this ending all the time because we're like, people are either going to love it or they're going to hate it. And people seem to really love the ending because it is another tonal shift in the film, but it was intentional. Like, we wanted it to be like beating everybody over the head, and then this moment of just tense uncertainty and just what's about to happen here. And yeah, and there was a lot of back and forth about the last 5 seconds of the film, what we're gonna do, and I think it leaves a lot open for a sequel, but it also, it gives you, even though the worst thing possible could have happened, it gives Sadie a little something back, which I thought was nice. Spider always likes nice endings, so.
Oh, I thought he liked the crazy endings. He looks like I mean, he seems like he's a crazy. I would love to talk to him and pick his brain. He probably would warp it. So if you're, I have a feeling Spider 1 will probably end up listening to this after this is done recording. But Spider 1, I would love to pick your demented head. Now, let's talk about the character Liz. She was reading this book called Women, Wolves, in the New World Order. Was that a legit book, or did you and Spider make that up?
Yeah, no, so character development is really important to us because classically, that isn't always the case in horror films. And we want to know, like, who are these people? Like, why do they all have their own voice? And what do they bring to the story individually? And Liz had to be, like, this super feminist. So
she sure was.
Actually made that book cover. Yeah. But we knew Liz was always going to be having a book, and she'd have, like, little bookmarks, pages. And it's funny because all the girls in this film are kind of heightened, extreme versions of their real personality. And if you met Rachel Brunner, the actress who plays Liz, we kept being like, she'd show up and she'd be like wearing clothes that Liz would wear, or she'd have like a tote bag with like vaginas all over it. And we're like, you're Liz, like, it's hilarious. And so she had a lot of thoughts too in regards to, how Liz would present herself and the things that would be important. And it felt very authentic because I feel like we couldn't have cast this better because everybody was just, a heightened version of themselves. The men as well. Obviously, none of the men, as far as I know, are murderers, but they all have essences and, they're much nicer humans and a lot less offensive, but just, like the guy, Big Mike, like, he also teaches children. Like, he's just like, he's terrifying, but now he's like, all the kids think I'm famous. They think I'm so cool from this. And I'm like, you let the kids watch this movie? Like, what the hell?
Hey, think about how the PTA and all the parents are going to come after him going, why are you letting them watch a horror film with you? That's not right. I also want to talk about another thing too is, you played a vampire, in one of the Underworld films. What was it like to play a vampire opposite Kate Beckinsale?
It was really amazing. That film really was a crash course for me on just being on a really large set and having a lot of different responsibilities, and I had to learn quickly. I was really young when I did that, and I had to work with a stunt person, and I had a fight scene where she kills me, and she was great. She was so nice and so cool. Everybody was. And I learned a lot from the director, Len Wiseman, as well. Like, just the way he was so hands-on down to like the makeup test and what every little detail of what you look like, or like, you know, when we were shooting, I don't know if you saw Underworld Evolution, but when
Yeah, I have.
Okay, so the scene when I walk in towards the blood orgy and
Yeah.
I drop my robe, like he was like listening to music, and he's like, come here after we shot this. He's like, he showed me the playback, and he's like, listen to this. He's like, this is the song I'm thinking for this scene. He's like, this is the trailer moment. This is going to be in the trailer. And it was right. Like, he knew everything as we shot it, and he was just such a hands-on director, and all those actors were pros. Most everyone came back from the first one, and there was only a couple newer roles, and I was one of the few of them. So yeah, it was a crash course of trying to learn as much as I could in an environment that was like such a large budget. And so it was amazing. I definitely got actually my ass kicked, though. I had bruises all over me after that fight scene, and because I wanted to go for it. I was like, yes, if Kate Beckinsale is going to kill me, then I'm really going to let her kill me. Let's go.
That's awesome. And then you also have a great music talent, too. You're a lead singer, you know, from High Heel Fox. How did that all come to be? How did you start that?
Well, Knee-High Fox actually came from, so I started out as an actress, and then I started songwriting for other bands. I wrote with this band, Theory of a Dead Man. I wrote this song called Bad Girlfriend with them that became a big hit. And all of a sudden, people were calling me to come write with bands. And I wrote I Miss the Misery with the band Hailstorm. And so I started doing a lot of that, and I loved it. But the one thing is, when you're writing for another band, there's kind of a box you have to fit into, because that's what they put out in the world, and that's what they want to say, and you have to think about it. And I was like, well, if I'm going to do that, I also want to write music for myself where there's just no limits. I can just do whatever I want. And so that's when Knee-High Fox kind of started, and I just wrote music that I just wanted to write, and I didn't worry about a label. I didn't worry about what other people. I just did it, and it became this really unique band that I think people now tell me, they're like, that was really ahead of its time. Like, no one was doing that at that time, especially female. And so it was such a great experience, and I got to tour with so many cool bands. You know, we got to open for Marilyn Manson a couple times. We got to tour with Power Man, which is amazing, and we just got to do a lot of really cool stuff, and, you know, go across the country and in Canada, and, you know, just there's nothing like playing live to an audience, and the type of energy a band like ours, like, you know, like mosh pits and rowdy ass crowds like that, I lived for, you know. And I mean, we'll probably play some more at some point. We're in the middle of pre-production for our new movie, but then possibly after that we can do some tour dates or something.
Now let's talk about you and Spider-One. It seems like all of these films you do are like twisted, crazy, and character driven. So when you guys sit together, what goes through each of your heads when you guys are trying to figure out a good film?
Well, you know, I think the thing about us is we watch everything. We watch a horror movie like every night. We're obsessed with films when we're really obsessed with horror. And we like a lot of the same things. Like, we both love The Shining and, you know, films like Jaws or the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. But we also are different generations. I'm younger than him. So the things he grew up with, more like 70s, 80s, like that was a huge influence for him. And of course, a lot of it is for me, but there's films like in the 90s, like Scream and The Craft, and, you know, that I was at a super young age, that was super influential to me. And so we're kind of this great melding of like taste and styles and, you know, the type of characters we like. So when we wrote Bury the Bride together, it was really, really fun because we got to pull in both of ourselves, because there's like so many male characters and so many female characters, and they all have such strong voices. We could really like use that to put a lot of ourselves into. So yeah, we spend a lot of time talking about things that we think are cool and just new ideas. And I think we never want to make the same film twice. So like, our new film is entirely different from Allegoria and entirely different from Bury the Bride, or my first two films, I Live Alone or Frank. It's a completely different type of film. And you know, I think they're always going to be, because yeah, if you make the same movie over and over again, people are going to get bored of you pretty fast, and that's not what we want to do either. And because we have so many different influences, I think we have a lot to pull from still. We have a lot more to do before we, you know, hopefully start sounding boring or stale.
So you got me interested on your guys' next projects. So is there a name, or you are a hush hush?
Yeah, there is a name I could talk about. It's called Little Bites, and it's essentially, the whole film is sort of a metaphor for being a parent and trying to protect your child, and how it can basically destroy you. And so yeah, there's a monster-esque creature in the film, and it's very dark and very tense. And this cast is a lot smaller than Bury the Bride. It's a lot more controlled, but it's insane. It's going to be one of those films that I think people are going to have a stomachache the whole time they're watching it, and like, you know, terrified and also disgusted. And it's great. We're just super excited to get going, and the cast, which I can't say yet, is just ridiculous. So we're just so excited to work with everybody. And we have some familiar faces coming back, and some familiar faces to other people that we haven't yet worked with. So that's really exciting.
So you guys do a lot of horror films. Have you and Spider ever thought about like doing a different type of genre film, maybe like a sci-fi action type of film?
Yeah, I mean, I know, well, we both have a passion for sci-fi. Spider is extremely passionate about that. Obviously, his band represents a lot of that. For me, like, alien stuff is probably one of the most terrifying things. I can't watch, like, Dark Skies. When I saw that film,
yeah, that's freaky.
Had to come home and sleep with me. Like, I can't deal with, like, I'm not kidding. The trailer for Signs, when, like, the fingers go under the door, like, I couldn't sleep for a week. That stuff, because I believe in it. So, yes, I could definitely, I think the whole idea for us is that One Fox is sort of homegrown horror, sci-fi, you know, and we just really want to be like this punk rock, hands-on production company that, you know, makes a splash in the horror world. And we never say no. You know, there's a lot of genres to cover, but that's the beauty of horror, is there's a million subgenres. There's so many things you can do. And yeah, I mean, I could definitely see some sci-fi in the very near future.
I can see you guys do, like you said, I can see you guys doing an alien type of film, which is pretty cool. Because I'm like you, I believe in all that too, and I think there's other solar systems out there. And I saw this documentary that talked about ever since if you see a Bigfoot sighting for some reason, there's always a UFO right behind Bigfoot for some reason. So I think there's like a connection between Bigfoot and UFOs. So
interesting. Yeah, I mean, you know what? I'm a believer in a lot of it. Spider and I have had ghost experiences, so we definitely, you know, believe in that side of it too. And we haven't really touched on, you know, as much the paranormal. I mean, I guess sort of, but nothing really ghost related. Yeah. So that's interesting too. That could be something down the road I could see us doing.
I could see you doing that too. I could see you being like one of the victims, like somewhere out in the middle of the road or out in the forest where people do really mysteriously disappear.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you're interested in more of our type of stories, we actually created this podcast with a couple of our friends, and it was on the Bloody Disgusting podcast network called Bleeders Digest.
Okay.
And they're all original scary stories, and they're fully immersive, so they're sound design. But Spider and I wrote a bunch of short films. Nice. Short stories that could be made into films that are on there. So if listeners are interested and want to go listen to Bleeders Digest, that's something that. There is some sci-fi, there's some paranormal, there's a lot of different things in there.
That's awesome. So where can everybody find you on social media and also follow your next projects?
Yeah, I mean, you can find me at Krsy Fox on Instagram, Twitter, I'm Knee-High Fox, and Facebook, Krsy Fox, and Spider's Spider1, and I think he's the real Spider1, the number one on Twitter. And then One Fox Productions, our website, our Instagram. But yeah, we're always posting. We'll definitely have some sneak peeks and stuff going on for our new project. So definitely look out.
All right. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
And everybody, thank you for listening to Horror Pop After Midnight.